Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Online Academy. My name is Stacy. I'm here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and we're going to be exploring animal health care. So I am wondering if you are wondering anything about how we care for our critters here at the aquarium. Now, if you would like to send in any questions or comments, we do want to encourage you to do that. And all you have to do is send us a text. We'll put the text line right down here. It's 562-286-1838. So go ahead and send us a text and let us know what your thoughts are or what your questions are, and we'll try to answer them here live in our program. Now, this program is taking place on Friday morning at 9 o'clock, so hopefully you are catching that one. If you have questions later, or maybe you're watching this as a recorded version of this class, we also love your questions that way too. All you have to do is email us, and that's down there as well, live@lbaop.org. All right, so I want us to get started thinking about how we take care of the over 12,000 animals that live here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. That's a lot of animals, right? Well, it's interesting to think about, but the animals we have here are wild animals, right? They are animals that you would naturally find out there in the wild, which makes them a little bit different than maybe you or the pets that you might have in your home. However, there's still a lot of things that we have in common. So I want you to just take a moment and think about, how do you take care of yourself and keep yourself healthy? Or if you have a pet at home, how do you take care of them and keep them healthy? What are some things that you have to think about? What are some things you have to do? All right, so just take a moment just to think about that. And we will talk a little bit more about what we do here at this aquarium. Now, another thing that makes this aquarium maybe a little bit different than life at home is that a lot of the animals here in this aquarium are animals that live underwater, just like this big face that you're seeing right here. And so that is kind of another challenge that we have to think about. How do you care for animals that live underwater? That way, it's very different than us. Some of you may have some fish at home, so you may think about like how you care for your fish at home. But I think most of us who have pets either have dogs, cats, or birds. Maybe hamsters or guinea pigs. Those are lots of fun too. Okay, so what do you have to do to take care of them? Well, you want to start from the very beginning. And what I mean by that is that you want to try to keep the animal healthy all the time, just like we try to keep ourselves healthy all the time. And so what are some things that we have to do to try to stay healthy day to day? Well, one of the things I do is I like to eat. Yeah, eating is really important, right? And so I like to eat food, and I try, oh, hello there, fish. I try to eat things that are healthy for me. Now, I don't always eat all the healthy stuff, but I try to make sure that if I have like fun snacks like ice cream, that I don't eat a whole day's worth of ice cream. Like, it's not every single meal. But I try to put in some really important things like vegetables and fruits, right? So for our fish here, they don't always eat a lot of vegetables and fruits, right? It depends on your fish. But we do give them a nice and healthy diet. What do you think they eat? Well, it depends on the fish. There are so many different kinds of fish. It also depends on what else they might be. Maybe they're not fish. Maybe they are jellies. Maybe they're seals. Maybe they're lorikeets, one of our birds here at the aquarium. So it depends on the animal, right? Now, the fish that you see here in front of you are mostly going to eat seafood. So maybe they eat squid or clam or maybe smaller fish. And those are the kinds of things that we want to feed our animals. Now, here at this aquarium, we try to feed them the best stuff that we can. We feed them restaurant quality seafood. Now, think about what that means, restaurant quality. It just means that it's the stuff that we would eat if we went out to a seafood restaurant. So if you've ever had calamari before, I think it's delicious. It's like the same squid that these animals are eating. Did you know calamari was squid, by the way? It is. Except we usually bread it and have sauces. We don't bread it and have sauces for these animals. They like to eat it raw, but we'll cut it up into bite size. These big fish can eat it whole. The smaller fish, like that one there, we actually cut it bite-sized, so they're able to eat it really easily. So they get lots of really, really great healthy food for them. That's one way to keep them healthy. Now, what else do we have to consider about, especially when you're looking at an exhibit like this? How do you keep these fish healthy? They get good food. Well, you have to keep the water clean, right? Now, we live here on land. And on land, we want to make sure that our areas are clean enough for us to live in too, right? We want our air to be fresh. We don't want it to be all polluted because that would make us sick. So it's very similar to them. They actually use water to breathe, right? Just like we have air for us to breathe. And so we need to make sure this water is nice and clean so that way when they breathe, they're not sucking in bad things. So how do you keep water clean? Well, if any of you at home have fish, you might know how that works. Sometimes you just do a water change. You take out some of the water and you put in some fresh new water. And that way, you're kind of keeping it clean. But when you have a big exhibit like this, it is really hard to remove a lot of water and just replace it all the time, right? So one of the things that we do all the time, it's always going, is we filter it. All right. So what does that mean? Well, that exhibit is 142,000 gallons of water. That's a lot of water, right? So we have all these things that are behind the scenes. So they're kind of back behind the walls, and they do lots of different things. This fun bubbly mechanism here is something that gets protein out of the water. How do you think protein gets in the water to begin with? Can you think of anything that has protein? Food, right? Food has protein. So maybe leftover food bits. Okay, so that somehow gets in the water. We want to filter that out. You know what else has protein? Waste. Yep, we're talking poop. So that has protein, and we got to get that out of the water too. So this is something called a protein skimmer or a foam fractionator, depends on how fancy you want to get. And what it does is it pumps water into this part here, and then it pumps air in it to make bubbles. And protein loves bubbles. It actually sticks to the bubbles, and it kind of makes the bubbles stronger. So eventually those bubbles, instead of popping like you see here, they kind of build and build and build and build, and then they go up into this section. This section right here, we can actually take off and clean out. So we're getting all that extra protein out. Now, this is an interesting thing. What about in the ocean? How does that even work, right? They don't have pumps or anything like that in the ocean. Well, have you ever gone to the beach or seen pictures of the beach where there's foam right along the shore or maybe even in the water? That's the same thing. So if any of you have played in ocean foam, you now know what it is. Just saying. Okay, so let's get back to filtration. Okay, so we know that this mechanism right here gets some of that protein out of the water. But there's more than just protein. There's like chunks of stuff sometimes. Maybe they only ate part of their food, and so there's like some leftover food hanging out. So they actually need to get filtered through other things like filter bags. And so we have these socks. They look like kind of a white long sock. Ha, there it is. So the water from the exhibit goes in these tubes and goes through the sock. The water can get through. It's really, really, really thick. Okay, so the water can get through and goes into this big tub here. But the chunks get caught in here. And in this sock, when it's time to clean it out, we turn it inside out and we can get all the chunk out. So the protein can get out through the foam fractionator. It can also get pulled out through here if it's large enough. All right, so there's lots of different ways that we can clean up. Now, do you see this thing in the back? This thing right here is actually a big old tub with a whole bunch of small items that have lots and lots of surface area. That means it's just like tons of space for bacteria to attach and grow. Now, a lot of times when you think about bacteria, you're like, oh no, that's bad stuff. That'll give you infections, you can get sick, but bacteria can be good too. In fact, we have good bacteria in our stomachs and in our intestines. We need that good bacteria to help us break down food for us to take in all the nutrients that we need to survive. Now, these bacteria are different. They're not the same as in our bellies. These bacteria actually break down the poop and they make it less poopy. They make it so it's not harmful anymore. So we have to have lots and lots of them so they can kind of break it all down, break it all down. So this is all really important stuff for keeping the water clean, right? So filtration is important. We can filter it all the time. Now here at this aquarium, we have a little over 1 million gallons of water across the whole aquarium, something like 1.2 to 1.4 million gallons of water throughout all of the exhibits here at our aquarium. And we filter about 1 million gallons an hour. So almost the whole aquarium goes through this filtration in an hour. That's wild, yeah? Well, I mean, it's because we got to keep the water clean, right? That's part of having a healthy space for our animals. So, okay, now we know what it means to take daily care of our fish. You have to keep the water clean, and you have to make sure they eat healthy stuff. But we don't just have fish here, right? We already established that. What about our mammals? Well, we also have to make sure they eat healthy things. We also have to make sure that their water is nice and clean. But another thing that we have to do with some of our mammals is make sure that their teeth are clean too. Now, can you think of what mammals we might have at an aquarium? If you thought seal or sea lion, absolutely. Now, we don't have whales here at this aquarium because whales need a lot of space. And so we don't have whales here, but we do have seals, sea lions, and sea otters. And they're all mammals, kind of like us, kind of like a dog and a cat. And they have teeth, and those teeth can get really dirty. Now, what do you do to take care of your teeth? Hopefully you brush them. You brush them, right? Just checking. Okay, so yes, teeth brushing, really important for health of teeth. Now, sometimes we also have to go to the dentist. Now, that happens for our animals here too. So this is one of our seals, and take a look. We have a toothbrush, and we're brushing her teeth. Check that out. Now, do you think when this seal first started living with us, she's like, okay, go ahead and brush? No, she doesn't do that. So we have to train our animals to help us to take care of them. Seals, sea lions, otters are kind of in a way like our food. And so work with them. And we have them do things to help us out with their health care. So this, again, is one of the things we do. We can have them open up their mouth, and we brush their teeth. Good! Isn't she doing a great job? She's so cute. Okay, so this was trained step by step, little by little. First, it was just having a toothbrush nearby and turning it on so she could hear it and not be afraid of that motor sound. If you've ever heard an electric toothbrush, they're quite noisy, right? And then eventually, we were able to get the toothbrush just to touch her teeth. And then we were able to actually brush her teeth. And of course, we also had to train her to open up her mouth, right? So all of those things were step-by-step training for us to get to the end product, which is brushing her teeth to keep her teeth healthy. Now, we don't have to do that for all of our animals. In fact, sea lions, this is kind of wild to think about. Sea lions actually have black teeth. Now, this is interesting, okay? The teeth of a sea lion is covered in bacteria. Now, remember that good bacteria we were talking about? It's actually another type of good bacteria. And the good bacteria on sea lion teeth, it actually keeps their teeth healthy. So we don't want to brush that off because they could be prone to more cavities or bad dental health if we get rid of that good bacteria. So for sea lions, we kind of just leave them be. Now, we still do want to check their teeth and make sure they're looking good and make sure that they don't need to get, like go to the dentist or anything to get a tooth extracted. So we have actually taught our sea lions, like the ones that you see here, to open their mouth. Take a look at those teeth. Like I said, they look pretty different than ours, right? They have black teeth, so that bacteria that covers them is really interesting. It makes them look a little different. Thanks, guys, for opening up your mouth for us. All right, so dental hygiene is very important. It's the same thing for us. We need to make sure we have healthy teeth so we can keep eating, right? And also, having healthy teeth keeps your body healthy too. So that's why we pay so much attention to that. Now, sometimes your day-to-day stuff isn't enough. We still get sick. We still have other problems with our bodies. And so for that, we have to go to a doctor, right? And then you go to get a checkup. You might get medicine. You might even have to have surgery, or maybe even go through a whole course of things, right? And that happens, and that's totally fine. And that's also what happens with our animals too. Now, when you have animals at home that need that help, you take them to a veterinarian. our animals go to a specialty veterinarian. Now, our vet team here is absolutely incredible because we have so many different types of animals and they can care for all of those different kinds. Our vet team is led by Dr. Adams, and Dr. Adams is really smart, y'all. Now, if you want to be a vet, I highly recommend you start studying and learning about animals and trying to get experience with them, because that's only going to help you as you go in the process of becoming a veterinarian. Now, here at this aquarium, we actually have an office for our vet team. This office is called the Molina Animal Care Center. And what's really great about it is if you came to visit us here at the aquarium, you could actually look inside the Molina Animal Care Center and see what's going on. And if we have any procedures, you can even watch. Now, this is what it kind of looks like from a different perspective than from our windows. So you can see our vet team hard at work here doing some research, keeping records, making sure this place stays nice and clean. It is hard work to keep up a vet office. Now, if you look really carefully, this window right here, all right, so that window that you see right there, that is actually where people can stand and watch anything that happens. And if you see this table right here, this is a hydraulic table, which means it can be lowered pretty close to the ground, and then it can be raised up to the level of the vet team. So this is really important when you're dealing with a very large animal. Think about those sea lions, right? They are hundreds and hundreds of pounds. I think at their lightest, or at his lightest, Parker, our biggest sea lion, is like 600, 650 pounds, something like that. At his, that's at his smallest. At his biggest, he's much closer to even like 800 plus pounds, maybe even bigger than that. Their sea lions kind of fluctuate their weight depending on the season. They gain a lot of weight at one time in the year, and then they lose a lot of weight. And this is kind of their natural body process. So anyways, hundreds of pounds is really hard to pick up and put up on a table, right? So this hydraulic table is actually going to help with that. We can lower it and we can raise it. So those are the hydraulics right there that allow us to do that. Now, other things besides just a table, we are able to do things like ultrasound, and we're able to do things like x-ray. And ultrasound and x-ray are really important tools to help us try to figure out what's going on without having to cut into the animal. It actually allows you to look inside. Now, what is the difference between an x-ray and an ultrasound? Have you ever gotten an x-ray before, or maybe even an ultrasound? Now, an x-ray is going to look at the harder parts of the inside of your body. What are the harder parts of the inside of your body? Your bones, right? We have lots and lots of bones, and they have lots and lots of bones. The seals and sea lions have lots and lots of bones. So do penguins, and so do a lot of fish. And so you're actually able to see the harder parts of their body, like their bones, by doing an x-ray. Now, this is what our x-ray machine kind of looks like. And what's really cool is it is digital. So we're able to get these pictures kind of like this that you see right here, and we're even able to zoom in to get a closer look at that x-ray if we need to. It's great quality imaging. Now, taking a look at this x-ray here, what do you think this x-ray is of? Is it a fish? Absolutely not, right? That can't be a fish. It's actually one of our birds. So yes, we have had to do x-rays on our penguins before, and part of that is to help us to care for them, right? So let's see what it looks like to get an x-ray on a penguin. It can be challenging because your penguin's awake, it doesn't know what's happening, and it might even try to jump away if we aren't careful with it. So one of the things we do with training is make sure that they are very used to being around us, because we want them to know that, hey, you're around us, you're safe, you're fine, and we can stand on this table that you're not familiar with and you'll be okay. So it kind of gives them some comfort. And then we're able to get things like x-rays. Now, for penguins in particular, they have issues with their feet. They do a lot of standing on their feet, and they have a lot of body and kind of little feet. And so penguins are prone to get this thing called bumblefoot. Have you ever heard of that before? It actually sounds kind of cute. It's not great for penguins. It can actually lead to some pretty bad stuff if it's not cared for. So one of the things that we will do is actually get an x-ray of the penguin's feet to see how they look. So this is a penguin foot. And you can see how the harder parts of its body are a lot whiter, right? So you can tell where the bones are versus the other tissue that is a little bit harder to view in this imaging. And that's because X-ray is designed to see the hard, like bone structures. Okay, so we will be able to see if there is bone damage by getting an X-ray of a penguin's feet like this. Now sometimes, and this is the hope, bumblefoot doesn't get all the way down to the bone. Hopefully it's just a sore on their feet. And if that's the case, then we only just have to keep it clean and keep it dry and make sure that it gets cared for. So we will bring a penguin in and we will actually take care of their feet. We'll have them show us their feet. We'll take a look and we can even clean it up. And the way that we keep it dry is that we have to wrap it. Yes, you can actually wrap a penguin foot. Now, what does that even look like? Let's take a look. This is what it looks like. Isn't that a cute little boot? Yeah, so this penguin here has bumblefoot, so it's almost like an open blister on the bottom of its foot. And so we're able to give it some structure with the kind of black, harder plastic thing that you saw there. And then we're able to wrap it in this vet wrap right here. And that vet wrap then keeps it protected and clean. And that can be taken off and then put back on again very, very easily without disturbing the blister. And we will have to keep that penguin in an area where it can stay dry as well. So we have behind the scenes space in that exhibit that allows us to take care of the penguin, keep it in the temperature that it needs to stay in, but out of the water so it doesn't get that boot wet and make that bumblefoot even worse. So yes, we can absolutely care for lots of animals, especially the ones with bones, by using x-rays and then following through with whatever treatment they need. All right, now if you have any other questions, please feel free to text us. Oh, sorry about that. That number is right down there, 562-286-1838. Okay, so now we know about those x-rays, right? I also mentioned ultrasound. So how is an ultrasound different? Well, an ultrasound isn't looking at bones. It's looking at soft tissue. Does that sound weird to you? Soft tissue, it's basically like your guts, right? And so we have an ultrasound machine that we can take out to go look at the soft tissue of our animals. Now, one of the reasons we would have to do that, and you may have heard of before, is if there is an animal that is pregnant. You do a lot of ultrasounds to kind of check out the baby growing on the inside. Another reason is maybe they have a stomach ache. Now, how do you know if an animal has a stomach ache? Have you ever thought about that before? See, for us, you can just go, oh, I don't feel good, my stomach hurts. We can communicate, we can talk. But how else would you know? For our animals, a lot of the time, it's that they act different than they did every day before that. Maybe they are spending time in a place they don't usually go to. Maybe they're not eating anymore. Maybe they're not going to the bathroom anymore. Those are all signs that tell us, okay, something's going on the inside of them that we should check out. And then we can take out our portable ultrasound machine and take a look. Do you want to see what that looks like? We have video of a shark getting an ultrasound done. Now, it sounds kind of crazy to do that, right? But you can actually do that. So let's go ahead and bring this up. So we have to get the shark. Now, this shark has been trained to go into that blue hammock, and then we can flip it upside down to do an ultrasound on its belly. And so that's what our vet team is doing. So there we go. This allows them to see what's going on inside this shark's belly. And that's what it kind of looks like. Now, I am not trained to tell you what that means, but our vet team is. They are able to tell so many things because they understand how to use these tools and what these tools are telling them. Okay, so those are just a couple of the tools that really helps out. Now, we have one more exam that we want to show you, all right? And here we go. So you may be wondering now about fish, right? Now, that very beginning of the video was actually that eel inside water. We'll play this again so you can take a look because it moves pretty fast. I know that. So this eel here had a growth on the top of its head. And that growth, although it wouldn't really harm the eel, was getting bigger. And so our vet team wanted to go in and remove it. And it ended up being quite large. It was just a fatty growth, nothing to be too concerned about. So they took the eel and they put it in a bin of water. And that powder that you saw that went inside the water, that's actually anesthesia. Anesthesia is medication that puts an animal to sleep. It just makes you sleep. So that way the eel isn't wiggling around and doesn't feel pain during that procedure. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that again. So there's that anesthesia powder. It gets put in the water and eventually that eel will fall asleep. We're able to take it out and put it on a cart just like this one that allows us to do the procedure. So that's what Dr. Adams is doing right now. Now, if you look carefully, there's a tube right there. That tube is actually going into the eel's mouth. Now, that's a really important thing because they breathe water, right? These fish get their oxygen from water, and so they need to be able to have water that go into their gills in order to continue breathing. So that tube pumps water into their mouth past their gills. So they're getting oxygen. They're also continuing to get that anesthesia, so they stay asleep. And Dr. Adams is able to perform the surgery. So he went in and he was able to remove that whole mass, okay, that growth, and then sewed him up. And then we put him in a place behind the scenes just to keep an eye on him. We also don't want too many other fish around, especially if we use stitches. Stitches just kind of stick out and other fish might want to try to pick at it. That's not good. So we put them behind the scenes in order to have them just rest, recuperate, heal, and make sure they're doing well. And once they're doing well, then we put them back in the exhibit, just like you saw at the very end of that clip. Now, these are just a handful of ways that we care for our animals here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. We have so many different ones, but again, the key to having really happy and healthy animals is to make sure you take care of them day to day, giving them nice and healthy food, giving them lots of exercise, a healthy place, a healthy and clean place to live. And of course, for a lot of our animals, we also do train them. We train our seals and sea lions and our otters, absolutely have to train them. We even train our sharks. So our sharks have been, a handful of our sharks, especially our bigger ones, have been trained to actually swim into that blue stretcher that you saw when we looked at the ultrasound video. And so they can swim into that stretcher, and then we're able to do procedures on them. Because the alternative is trying to chase it into a place. And being chased doesn't feel good, right? It's stressful. And we don't want to stress out our animals. We want them to be happy and healthy. So these are just a handful of things that we do here at the aquarium. I'm wondering if it's different than what you do at home for yourself and for your animals. Maybe that's something to think about. Well, thanks again for joining us at this online academy. We really appreciate you joining us here. Now, if we have any classes that are watching this program, we do ask if you can actually text us at the number below how many students you have with you. It just helps us keep track of how many folks are utilizing our online academy. And that's really helpful for us, so we would appreciate that. If you have any other questions or any comments, anything you'd like to let us know, send us an email at live@lbaop.org. Thanks again so much for visiting us, and hopefully we'll see you here at the aquarium one day or for another online academy. Bye, everybody.